The world of finance is at a pivotal moment with seismic shifts that could redefine how we conduct trade, manage currencies, and perceive economic power. Just last month, one of the most significant economic deals of the century came to an end. The long-standing PetroDollar agreement between Saudi Arabia and the US expired on June 9, 2024.
Saudi Arabia has decided to terminate its 50-year-old PetroDollar agreement with the United States.
This system, which was in place for 75 years, marks a seismic shift in global economics. So, in today's video, I want to break down exactly what's happening, why it's happening, and how this will affect us and the future generations. Buckle up, because things are about to get intense. This isn't just another chapter in the story of money. This is the beginning of the changing world order. When most people think about global trade, they picture commodities like corn or wheat. But there's one commodity that reigns supreme: oil. At the heart of this intricate web of global finance is the PetroDollar system. When people around the world think about what money actually is, they are likely picturing the US dollar. But it wasn't always this way. From 1720 to 1815, if you asked someone to name a currency, they would probably say the French livre. France held the reserve currency status during that period. From 1815 to 1920, the British pound took the lead. However, everything changed after World War II with the creation of the Bretton Woods Agreement, which positioned the US dollar as the world reserve currency. The US emerged as the dominant superpower post-World War II, and the Bretton Woods Agreement cemented the dollar's role globally. It's important to note that this shift wasn't just about commodities, it was about cementing economic stability and benefiting from the rising asset prices, including treasury bonds. Countries parked their wealth in the US dollar, seen as a stable currency to preserve wealth against inflation. Japan, China, and the UK are some of the biggest holders of US assets through foreign exchange reserves, totaling roughly $7 to $8 trillion today. But there was another superpower made for the US dollar: control over the world's energy. The standard of living of Americans can be traced back to the vast oil deserts of Saudi Arabia. After the dollar got off the gold standard, it became the petrodollar, replacing the original gold with what some call as black gold, another name for oil. This transition is one of the most fascinating stories in history. The petrodollar system was devised by Kissinger and Nixon. President Nixon sent Henry Kissinger to Saudi Arabia for a secret meeting on the USS Quincy. Few records were kept, but Roosevelt promised the Saudi king weapons and protection in exchange for exclusive rights for the US to develop Saudi oil using dollars. Now, what does all this mean for the US? Well, what is the US famous for exporting? China is known as the world's factory, Germany for its engineering and high-quality manufacturing, Japan for electronics and cars, South Korea for semiconductors and smartphones, Saudi Arabia, you guessed it right, for oil, Russia for natural resources, Brazil for agriculture, India for software services, Australia for natural resources, Canada for timber and minerals, France for luxury goods, Italy for fashion and luxury, and Netherlands for dairy products, and Switzerland for its financial services. Well, US is known for exporting its technology and the military. What does that mean? It means, arguably, the biggest export the US has by far is US dollars. By design, the US is the world's biggest money exporter. How does exporting dollars help the US economy? In every way imaginable. The PetroDollar system created global demand for US dollars and treasury bonds, fueling US growth by issuing debt that other countries buy. It created a stable economy, lower interest rates, and liquidity in financial markets, benefiting the US stock market through higher stock prices and investment flows. Without this ability to export dollars, the US economy would have faced significant challenges. This agreement helped the US maintain dominance over global trade and preserve the US dollar as the world's reserve currency for over 75 years. However, just last month, the Saudi prince announced that he would not renew this contract. This decision is part of a broader trend where countries are ditching the dollar in international trade and oil transactions. Another fact is, interestingly, there are now more $100 bills in circulation than there are $1 bills. What's even more fascinating is that more $100 bills circulate outside the United States than inside it. In fact, 80% of all circulating $100 bills are now outside the US. This is why the United States can control its consumer price inflation using the Federal Reserve central banking system. Like, for example, recently, the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, which measures inflation, has been going down. Partially, this is because the US can offload excess money to other countries. Of all the superpowers the US holds, this is one of the top most important superpower. That is the reason why US is still considered a superpower in the world. You might be thinking, hold on, isn't money already digital? I use my credit card and mobile banking apps, and to an extent, yes, it is digital, but not exactly. We still use more or less the same system we've been using for hundreds of years. Imagine this. It's the 1600s. People are using gold coins to buy things. Gold is heavy to carry, easy to steal, hard to divide, and not that hard to fake. Then comes the idea of paper money, a revolutionary concept. We could use paper to represent gold. Fast forward, and now these pieces of paper represent nothing but debt itself. In the 20th century, we got off the gold standard and moved to digital banking. Our money is now represented by numbers on a computer screen, but behind those numbers are still traditional banks and middlemen that have counterparty risk. When you use apps like Apple Pay, Venmo, and PayPal, you're not sending money in real time. You're just sending an IOU or a claim to money. There has to be someone in the middle to verify those transactions. Banks don't do this for free. They charge fees and don't work on weekends. But then, in the 21st century, we got the birth of cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin. Cryptocurrencies are completely digital, decentralized, and not controlled by anyone, so there's no need for a middleman to verify anything. Over time, the system grew, turning skeptics into believers and believers into investors. Of course, crypto and Bitcoin are not the same, and crypto has its own problems with volatility and market manipulation. Some of that volatility and market manipulation is also seen in Bitcoin. But the underlying technology, blockchain, is better than the system we have today. It's so much better that these benefits couldn't be ignored by central governments. So, they are starting to adopt them into their own systems. And that's where CBDCs, that is central bank digital currencies, are coming into play. Today, we are in the midst of a technological revolution that's fundamentally changing our world. The rise of distributed ledger technology offers a new approach to recording ownerships of assets, allowing for the creation of new financial products and services, including cryptocurrencies. A CBDC is a true digital version of a country's fiat currency. Think of CBDCs as another country's cryptocurrency using the same technology to transfer value. Now, why are the central governments creating this system? Imagine there is an earthquake or a natural disaster. With CBDCs, We can have direct stimulus relief to people during a crisis without any delay. No lost checks in the mail. There are many benefits. But what's the catch? The catch is that the next time a country needs to buy its energy and oil from another country like Saudi Arabia, it won't need to rely on the old PetroDollar system. In the past, if countries traded outside the US dollar, the US could intervene and shut down those transactions because everyone used the traditional banking system. But this new system can exist outside the traditional banking system. Once this new system goes live at scale, no more permission will be needed from the US banks. This is how CBDCs could challenge the dominance of the US dollar in international trade. The dollar's share as a global reserve currency is at a 14-year low, and this pivot could definitely speed things up. And all this is happening pretty fast. There is a new player challenging this old system already. It's called the Embridge Project, a central bank digital currency. Project Embridge is a central bank digital currency that allows the transfer of value across the world instantaneously and cheaply. It uses distributed ledger technology, the same technology that powers Bitcoin. However, like all blockchains, it's limited by the laws of nature. For example, the speed of light has a cosmic speed limit. The law of gravity means what goes up must come down unless another force acts upon it. The law of conservation of energy says energy can never be created nor destroyed, only converted. Blockchain technology also has its limits. It can master 3 specific things, but only 2 at a time. We have never created a technology that breaks this law. Embridge chose to master security and scalability, but left out decentralization. For global trade between countries and central banks, decentralization isn't that important. But for the users of the currency, a lack of decentralization comes with its own risks. Let me show you how popular this Embridge system is becoming. It has Switzerland's Bank for International Settlements, the central banks of China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and the United Arab Emirates testing this technology as we speak. They have given access to a sandbox version to 27 other entities, including the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the central banks from countries like Norway, South Korea, and Turkey. Massive players are involved in developing these CBDCs. We can all see how the world of money is evolving right before our eyes. The Atlantic is no longer the boundary of the digital technology ocean. We live in a more global world than we did just a few decades ago. The economy and money markets are going through drastic changes, and we all have to adapt. So let's break it down. What's in it for us? Here are the potential benefits of using CBDCs. First off, we have lower transaction costs. This makes sending money across borders cheaper and easier, increasing financial inclusion. If you're a migrant worker sending money home to your family in another country, this could save you money. It also makes it easier for small businesses in developing countries to access the global financial system. Secondly, there's greater financial inclusion. CBDCs can help reach the unbanked and underbanked populations who currently lack access to traditional banking services. It could help lift people out of poverty and reduce inequality by giving them access to basic financial services, like a savings account or a credit card perhaps. But with these benefits come risks and challenges. First, there is a risk of financial stability. If not properly managed, CBDCs could disrupt financial systems and markets. Central banks will need to carefully manage the implementation and regulation of CBDCs to avoid any unintended consequences. Secondly, there's the risk of privacy and surveillance. CBDCs are digital currencies, and like all digital transactions, they can be tracked and monitored. They are different from Bitcoin, which is decentralized. CBDCs are all centralized and are controlled by their governments. There are concerns about how much privacy individuals will have using CBDCs and how their data will be protected from hackers and cyber threats, or even just the government tracking you, tracking your spend habits, tracking where you're spending money, and possibly controlling it in the future. Despite these risks, the adoption of CBDCs is gaining momentum globally. Many countries are exploring or piloting CBDCs, and some have already launched their own. China, for example, has been at the forefront of CBDC development with its digital yuan, also known as the ECNY. Other countries like Sweden, the Bahamas, and Ukraine are also making significant progress. So, why is Saudi Arabia doing this now? Well, some blame US leadership for creating this situation, others the inflation. Also, some say it makes sense for countries to trade and sell their assets in the currency they want. Saudi Arabia's decision is also tied to its commitment to the BRICS alliance, which stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. China and Russia have been reducing their dependency on the dollar for a while, leading to a 14-year low for the dollar as a reserve currency. Now, you may ask, how can the US fight this? To be honest, there's not much the US can do, which sounds like bad news. However, it's important to note that the US dollar is still pretty powerful. The world holds roughly 59% of its foreign exchange reserves in dollars, compared to 20% in euros and only 3% in the Chinese yuan. The dollar is used in 88% of the foreign exchange transactions. The dollar is also backed by the world's biggest, most advanced, and the most powerful military. Well, how long will all this last? Well, when you look at the history, every world reserve currency at some point has failed. As technology evolves, one thing is certain: the future of money is digital, and CBDCs are shaping the next phase of the global financial system. As we move forward, it's crucial to stay informed and engaged in discussions about the impact of CBDCs on our economy, society, and privacy. The choices we make today will shape the future of finance for generations to come. Like I said, as an investor, it's important to stay informed, stay prepared. The future of finance is now.